Okay, welcome to also this should be a revision video if you're in your IGCSE course. You should have done this last year, but we're just doing a kind of a refresher. So for those of you that's not really on the same page yet with this, so we're going to look at lowest common multiples and highest common factors. So we're looking at lowest common multiples because we can't find the highest common multiples because that would be infinite. So the lowest common multiple. So I'm going to do it in a very, I think it's a very long kind of method. Not long, but it might be a bit tedious for you. You can do it differently. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to write all the multiples of 8 and all the multiples of 10 and then check where I get first, because I don't like that way. But I can do a little tree. So usually they expect you might get an answer, well, let's say a mark in your IG exam for doing a factor tree. So you know what prime factors are. Those are prime numbers. The factors, any number can be divided into like a sum or let's say the product of its prime factors. Well, that was, my English was not Englishing there. Anyway, so 8. I'm going to look at this example first. 8 can be 2 times 4, and then 4 is not a prime number, and then we have 2 times 2. So 8 can be written as, I'm going to write 8 here. That can be written as 2 times 2 times 2. And 10 can be divided into 2 and 5, and both of these are prime numbers. So 10 can be written as 2. I'm going to write the 2 under the 2, and then now this is where the tricky, but well, it's not tricky, but where my method, I guess, that I was taught and that I like teaching comes in, as I'm going to write the number 5 here. Okay, you'll see why in a minute. Where's my eraser there? Cool, so I did the little factor tree. You can do it differently as well. Some people do it like this, do like the 8, and then do 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, and then what can go in here? 2. 2 into 4 is 2, and then 2, and that's 1. So I know these are kind of the factors. 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, either way, it doesn't really matter. Both get to the same answer. Now, if I want the lowest common multiple, what I'm going to do is basically what I'm doing is, if I look at the first number, which is the 2, I'm going to look in between 8 and 10 who has the most 2's, and I'm going to write all those 2's down. And that's why I kind of do this, because there are 3 2's here. So I'm going to write 2 times that 2 times that 2. Okay, and then next I'm going to look at the next factor, or prime factor, which is 5. And 8 doesn't have 1, but there is 1, and the most amount is 5. So I'm going to write 5. And then I just multiply all these together. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, times 5 is 40. Okay, so that's the lowest common multiple. Let's do the same for 35. I'm not going to do the tree because these are pretty simple. 35 can be written as 5 times 7. And 55 can be written as 5 times 11. And I'm not writing it underneath each other. And the most amount of 5's, either of one of them has is 1. So there's a 5, there's a 7, and there's an 11. If this was, for example, another 11, so 11 times 11, then I would take both of them down. But in this case, we have 5 times 7, which is 35. Now a little trick with the 11 times table, I can write 35, and I just add 3 plus 5 is 8, if you didn't know that. Anyway. Or you can use a calculator, but this would probably be in a non-calculator paper, so you might not be able to use it. Anyway, so that's that. I'm running out of space here. So for 4, let's do 4 here. Okay, so 4, it's going to be 2 times 2, and 5 is going to be, there's just a 5, and 6 is going to be 2 times 3. Let's do this in a different color that we don't get confused. And I'm just going to bring the 2's down. The most amount of 2's are 2, so it's going to be 2 times 2. I'm going to bring the 5 down and bring the 3 down. Okay, there are different other methods of doing this. This is just the one that I usually teach. It works for me, but if you can just see the answers, that's also good. Okay, so let's just see. We have 2 times 5 is 10, times 3 times 6, so that would be 60, I think. Cool. So this was the lowest common multiple. And while we have everything set up here, I'm going to do the highest common factor. Highest common factor. And to get the highest common factor, I kind of make pairs with the factors that are in both, that's in set. So if I use this, I can see a 2 is in both of these. That 2 doesn't have a friend here, that 2 doesn't have a friend here, and that 5 doesn't have a friend here. So the highest common factor between 8 and 10 would be 2, because they're in both. In this case, again, the 5s are similar. So the 5, there's only a 5, so the highest common factor here would be 5. And in this case, you can see there's not a 2 in all of them. This 2 only has no friends, that 5 is alone, and 3 is alone. So the highest common factor in this case is basically just 1. 1 can go into those numbers, but nothing else. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. If I, let's just think of let's see if I can quickly get an example for a highest common factor off the cuff. Just quickly think of one that will have, me having to do some calculations actually. Let's do another one. I'm just going to finish off with the highest common factor one that actually has more than one factor. Or like, yeah. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to guess 20. Let's just go for, let's do 14 and 28. Okay, just for an example. So what I would do is I know 14, if I make a little tree here, it's going to be 2 and 7. And for 28, it's going to be, that's an 8, 2 and 14, and then 2 and 7. So 14 can be written as 2 times 7. 28 can be written as 2 times 7 times another 2. Okay, so if I wanted to find the highest common multiple, that would never work, lowest common multiple, then it would be 2 times 7 times 2, which is actually just 28. And if I wanted to find the highest common factor, I'd make pairs. So the 2 is in both, and the 7 is in both. So basically it'll be 2 times 7, which is 14. Cool, and that's that.